Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Lakes Truck Series here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. Joined alongside me tonight is Jeff Johnson, and we've got quite the show for you going on tonight as we're taking on a facility that's not often raced in these NASCAR style vehicles. Last time this was done was in the 1990s when the Cup Series had an expedition here. Jeff, what do you expect the action to be like tonight? Well, as we're dealing with a little bit of technical issues on the other side of the booth here, we're going to be talking a little bit about what these are dealing with tonight because it unique style of racetrack. We haven't gotten anything like this before, and from my own laps I've done around here, it kind of feels like a Darlington style track with a wider turn 1 and 2 and tighter turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, Alex, it's a unique racetrack out here in Twin Ring Motegi. A very different, very similar, but also a very different circuit to what we're used to in the Great Lakes Truck Series. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys handle it.
Yeah, for how they handle it indeed, because I mean, I personally struggled around this place. It seems like a very difficult setup these guys are dealing with tonight. It's very tight on the entry to these corners, but just as loose coming off the corners. And the corners are very, very long around here, so there's going to be likely a lot of tire saving going on. And I mean, it's either this field is going to spread out a ton, or we're going to get some crazy battling going back and forth while guys try to figure out how to drive this place.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. And something I am noticing is we have pretty close to a full field, which I don't think anybody was expecting here from Motegi. So track position is going to be key, and it'll be something to look at as the race progresses.
Well, as these drivers get rolling away, now would be a fantastic time to look at our starting lineup for tonight. And the pole position occupied by last week's winner, Nathan Jump, taking the controller to lead the field to green here at Twin Ring Motegi, with Nathan Nicholson along his outside in the second position. Just behind them as well, you got the 12 of Zachary Henry and Jake Miller, last season's champion. And as we keep going back through the field here, you got Heller and RJ Williams behind them. More competitive drivers, Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger in 7th and 8th. I mean, there's a lot of competitive names here at the front of the field tonight. Doesn't look like as many new guys are really standing out so far. And as the field rolls through here, Nathan Nixon, Brandon Barkuski, 9th and 10th. Josh Cottle and William Barber Gelada, 11th, 12th, with Michael Senzi and Elliot Henderson lining side by side in 13th and 14th. Just behind them, Matthew Durr and Lewis Woodall in 15th and 16th. Eric Keff with a little bit of a poor qualifying performance down there in the 17th spot, with Hunter Brittle to his outside. Matt Daniels and Brett Kingcott behind them in 19th and 20th, with Tyler McClellan and Austin Moore following behind in the 21st and 22nd position. As we keep going further and further back in this field, we see drivers that are a little bit less consistent on week to week. It seems to be, as these guys are having to adapt to this new racetrack, that there's the real experience and speed moving their way to the front, as we see Anderson Bowen and Kyle Hall 25th and 26th, alongside with Aaron McEachern and Shane Terrian all the way down there in 27th and 28th, with Hunter Madalena, Steven Sims, and pretty much anybody back from that point not taking a qualifying time tonight. So some of these drivers, he's talking about track position, some of them decided not to take a time, or they ran a poor time in qualifying. How is that going to affect them?
I don't know that qualifying matters too much here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. It might matter a lot more at this track than it has all season long with the tire wear and kind of with the length of this race. This race is just a little bit longer than what we're used to at 120 laps, just shy of 200 miles as the pace car enters turn 3.
Yeah, as it looks like the lights are out on the pace car, we're likely going to be going around, and we're going to be getting the green flag going as the pace car takes the hard left-hand turn. Nathan Jump will lead the field to green with a fantastic jump on that inside lane. He's going to be clear of the field by over 2 car lengths over Nathan Nicholson, with Zachary Henry on the inside lane looking to battle down here. The inside lane is pretty strong around here, but Nathan Nicholson's going to hold it around the top with these cold, very sketchy tires. Gonna be having to watch out for any possible wrecks here. Is almost look to be 3 wide there with Barkowski in the back. I see all these guys going crazy back here. These tires are cold. It's hard to get to the throttle already.
Yeah, 3 wide on that restart. Ashton Lawson got pinned on the bottom. I didn't catch who was on top, but a big moment for Lawson coming off 2 where he slipped and managed to catch it. So that could have been a big incident early on for some of these guys up front.
Luckily, they all make it through here. This is a very, very big racetrack, so if something were to happen, it's going to be from guys kind of pinching each other a little bit too hard and get a little bit too tight of racing. There's plenty of space to go move around this racetrack. Problem is, the biggest spot you're going to want to be is right there on the bottom lane, as I'm seeing a little bit of a battle there around, I believe that's the 5th position. Never mind, as Jake Miller is going to slot in just ahead of Christopher Heller, and there's a good battle just behind them with Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger side by side, with Brandon Barkowski looking to slot his way in there. As we're seeing the caution come out, crash in the back. I believe gonna have to look and see who that is in the back, but uh-oh, cars up against the wall. Matthew Daniels, Matt McDermott are stuck against the outside wall. Looks to be some trouble down into that tight turn of turn 3. That the key person we're going to have to be looking at in this incident is going to be Matt Daniels, I believe, as I think he may have been the driver that ended up initially getting into this incident. So coming down into turn 3, we're going to see him up on the outside of Austin Moore to his inside, and he just gets loose down into 3,
Wow.
gets tagged in the back bumper by Gavin Fitzgerald, and oh no! Absolute disaster for the victim of McDermott just getting involved in that incident. And that is pretty much going to end both their nights right there with some massive damage on lap 2 of this race. You're going to see kind of an on board here as he's up the track, and oh, through the smoke comes that spinning car of Matthew Daniels, and just not enough room for him to get out of the way in time. That is going to end his night right there and then, but already trouble early in this race. Most likely just some inexperience at this racetrack for these guys. The most practice they had was this 1-hour practice session beforehand for most of these drivers, and we're already seeing incidents early on in this event.
Yeah, we were hearing from drivers before the race, Alex, that we believe it's a kind of a combination of the setup and the weather, but throughout the week, this setup and this track have gotten progressively looser, presumably because it's actually gotten a little bit hotter as the sessions have advanced. So that's something these guys are going to have to take care of tonight. You saw Matt Daniels right there just kind of lose it turning into the corner. That's not something we've seen too much this season, as a driver really losing it on corner entry. We usually see it in the middle of the corner or corner exit. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I noticed with this racetrack is these corners are just so phenomenally wide, is that it's very easy to either overshoot the corner and get really, really tight, or take it a little bit too easily and try and make it up through the center, and you just get really, really loose. These corners are so wide to go from the straightaway down into the bottom lane, which is the fast lane, and you're kind of blind going down there. You don't have a very definitive line to get down into the corner like you do at most other racetracks.
Yeah, and in a way, I'm sitting here kind of thinking about what we could compare this track to stateside, and I think I've settled on here at Twin Ring Motegi. It's essentially just a scaled up version of Gateway. The way you have to get into these corners, the way the banking falls down into the corner instead of picks up, it just unsettles the truck, and it's something these guys might not be all that used to outside of a track like Gateway or Dover.
Yeah, and I that's actually a very, very good comparison because it is very much like a very highly scaled up version of Gateway, but that larger size of facility really changes how you drive this racetrack because you go from just doing a very hard straight braking zone to a tight corner to now having this extremely wide corner that you're going into at high speed with so little banking. It's very awkward to negotiate for these drivers because you don't want to lose too much time through the center of the corner because they are just so long.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something we'll have to deal with for the rest of the night. But while I'm looking at it, a big shout out. I didn't catch it in the pre-race, but Nathan Jump started on pole. He is technically a rookie to the Great Lakes Truck Series this season, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, please correct me. But Nathan Jump kind of having a phenomenal start to the season here. Obviously, we're still early in this race, but he is still out front.
Yeah, and to some of you who may have heard the controller comment at the beginning of the event, last week he won the race at what was the chaotic, you could almost describe it, demolition derby of Bristol Motor Speedway, as only a few trucks survived on the lead lap, but Nathan Jump was the one who capitalized. He talked to us in the booth last week and said that he was playing on a controller. He was taking the thing out on his lawn chair with his computer out and sitting with a controller playing, and he seems to have good speed on it with the pole position this week, and he very strongly led the first couple laps here.
It's gotta be a heightened level of car control to be able to do all this on a joystick, Alex. So mad props to Nathan Jump. Already made kind of took advantage of all the incidents we saw last week, but then here tonight, early on, he is proving that he should be up here.
Well, up here he is indeed. Let's see if he could get as good of a restart as he did the previous time. As the lights are out on the pace car, it's going to take the left-hand turn. We're going to be going green flag here as rolls up to the rear bumper, and Nathan Jump is going to get, once again, a good jump on the restart, but this time Zachary Henry not able to contend with Nicholson up on the inside. Nicholson slots in a second pretty easily. Battle's going to be for the third position between RJ Williams and Zachary Henry. Can RJ hold it around the outside? The tires are a lot hotter now than they were on the previous restart, and it looks like Zachary Henry is going to get the advantage coming off the corner, but RJ Williams is going to have that line on the outside with the draft, but it's not going to be enough to carry it down into turn 3. And now the battle for the lead starting to heat up at the same time as this, as Nathan Nicholson's getting a lot closer here, as these two are still going at it for the third spot. Racing going on all over the place as Nicholson looks to take it to the inside of Nathan Jump for the lead down into turns 1 and 2. This could be the key position change right here and now as the guys in third and fourth are battling still.
Yeah, battling for third, but Nathan Nicholson makes it look easy. Oh, almost makes it look easy getting past Nathan Jump on the inside.
Very, very strong move there for Nathan Nicholson. Gonna have to watch out for the tires a little bit, pushing that hard early on, but these two going on for third and fourth, Zachary Henry, RJ Williams, they just will not give up. I would have thought that Zachary Henry would have had the position. Looks like RJ Williams is finally going to give up the spot and take the inside lane, as Christopher Heller is going to look to try and capitalize around the outside, but that's going to allow Jake Miller to slot up the bottom. Jake Miller was in a bit of a battle earlier on there as well, but he's going to get loose off the corner. That's going to allow Heller to get the run and clear him. And now the battle is just behind them between Ashton Lawson and Shane Neiswanger, as now the whole top 5 have started to settle it out here.
Yeah, the top 5 settling out, Alex. A question for you as more of a driver than I am is what line do you think is going to be the preferred line as this run goes on? We see a truck have a little bit of an issue off of 4 there. Kyle Hall looks like he almost looped it but managed to straighten it out. But back to what I was saying, Alex, as this run goes on, as these tires fall off, what do you think the preferred line is going to be for these drivers? Where do they want to be as they're setting up to pass?
Well, I mean, we've already seen the bottom lane prevail for most of these drivers so far tonight. Pretty much any time there was a side-by-side battle, no matter how long it took, eventually that inside line would end up working out. But I could see some use coming out of that outside lane, especially on the restarts with everybody stacked up. There could be some clean air to find out there in the mid-pack where everybody's very much on top of each other. But once we get to this point of the run, everybody started to single file out. I don't think there should be any reason for you to be on the outside lane, as you are eventually just going to lose positions, if not get trained.
Brandon Barkuski and Josh Cottle battling for the 11th
Shane
position.
Neiswanger spun around turns 3 and 4. Looks to have gotten hooked with how sharply he got spun around there in the center of the corner. Could be some trouble here out on the racetrack. Now, he was running in between Ashton Lawson and Elliot Henderson, so the question is going to be if there was any contact between any of those drivers onto Shane Neiswanger as we head down into turns 3 and 4. Looks to be a gap, and all
Oh,
of a
wow.
sudden, that truck snaps around from underneath them. I simply cannot explain what happened there to that vehicle, but all of a sudden, all the rear grip in that truck disappeared, and he's looped it like it was nothing. Now, we are going to have to look out for one thing tonight. We have not talked about it so far in the race. We're pretty early on, but now would be a good time to try and look and see if there was any shifting troubles, as down in turns 3 and 4, the optimal way to run that corner is you get down into the corner and try and downshift into third as fast as you can without being too early, as that allows you to brake a lot less and get a lot more acceleration off. And there is the possibility that Shane Neiswanger may have shifted down in a third too quickly, causing that truck to be very heavily unsettled.
Yeah, to the untrained eye, Alex, that almost looked exactly like what it was. We'll look at the onboard here. See if we can... Oh, yeah, it definitely sounded like he popped it into third early. And, I mean, it just spun that truck right around.
Yeah, that was a big trouble I personally had trying to run this vehicle around this racetrack, because it's very hard to determine when exactly you should drop it down in a third gear, because it's so close to being like you should keep it in fourth gear around that corner. But you're just slow enough that if your competitors do a better job at shifting down and really driving it off in third gear, you're going to be left in the dust. And as we saw right there, these competitors are taking every single last inch they can to try and maximize their speed around this racetrack. Well, luckily you can determine that there was no incident between any drivers in that caution right there, so there shouldn't be any more trouble out there on the racetrack. We saw lots of controversy last week with a lot of drivers being angry with one another. Plenty of drivers in this field who have already created a couple somewhat rivalries between each other. But as of right now, no troubles out there on the racetrack, as we look back at Nathan Nicholson leading the field after a strong pass on Nathan Jump, who still retained the second position, with Zach Henry retaining his starting spot in third position, with RJ Williams there in fourth. Looks to be that passing is not the hardest thing in the world, but the trouble for these drivers is trying to set up the passes. It seems to be that the pace is very, very close between each driver. It's very hard to generate a run with how large these corners are and how wide they are. So trying to find a way to get a big run down these straightaways is where these drivers find trouble making passes.
Yeah, something I noticed early on is Nathan Nicholson, our leader, probably the only driver I've seen so far make it look easy passing on the inside. Um, That'll be something to look for as the race progresses. Nathan Nicholson already searching for his third win in 5 races this season, so he's definitely going to be one to watch.
Yes, but in the process of that victory, he has angered a couple drivers in the process. But if he keeps this run going and can stay ahead of the field, his rivals may have a hard time even getting close enough to him to pay him back, because we saw him have big troubles between him and Ashton Lawson at Long Beach. Then he didn't end up attending the race at Bristol last week. And so this would be the first time that these two drivers are on the racetrack with each other once again. But as of the positions right now, you have Ashton Lawson sitting, I believe that is in the 7th position. So with Nathan Nicholson having 6 trucks in between him and the driver he made very, very angry at Long Beach, might be trouble seeing any payback happening this week.
Yeah, definitely some bad blood between some of these drivers on the racetrack. Um, as we talk about it, something I've noticed, and I mentioned this earlier, is Nathan Nicholson has essentially become Great Lakes' version of Ross Chastain. He's not at all bashful about how he drives his truck, and that's something that I think we could appreciate.
And it looks like these drivers are lining up to get the green flag as we're going to be coming off of turn 4. That pace car is going to take the hard left-hand turn on the pit road. Nathan Nicholson is going to lead the field to green. Is he going to get a really good jump? Looks like he is going to be able to, as it looks like the inside lane has had their best start so far in this race, as Zachary Henry is going to get big help from Heller to push him alongside Nathan Jump and almost blow by him down in a turn 1 and 2, but not without a fight just yet. Jump is holding on to that outside quarter panel to try and get a run down the straightaway, as I'm seeing drivers get a little bit loose towards the back. These two are going to be fighting side by side as they head down into turns 3 and 4. That inside lane should prevail down here in 3 and 4. That's a big corner for them. Zachary Henry looked to get a little rough down into third gear, but Nathan Jump is still to the outside. He's doing a good job hanging on for the moment, but how much longer can he do this with drivers behind lining up ready to get past him as well?
Yeah, Nathan Jump holding strong on the outside. It'll be interesting to see where he slots in as the field kind of single files out very quickly in the top 10. Nathan Jump, the only one still trying to make it work on the high side, and it looks like he might do it. Heller's going to dive down to the bottom. How about his teammate and Zachary Henry getting into 3? But like we talked about, Alex, I think the bottom line is the preferred line. But right now, Nathan Jump trying his best to keep that high side working.
Oh, he went a little deep down into 3. That's going to hurt his corner exit speed. He almost had Zachary Henry clear down the back straightaway. That's going to continue this battle for another lap or two as the leader in Nathan Nicholson is absolutely pulling away from this battle behind. But with that little mistake out of Nathan Jump, it looks to be the advantage goes to Zachary Henry. Is he going to slide up? No, he will not. Very, very close between these two drivers, but down into turn 3 should be where Zachary Henry gets the spot. That's going to allow Christopher Heller to get into this fight as Heller gets a little bit loose, jumping it down into third gear. Now the battle is for the third position between Heller and Jump. Can Jump slot his way into the third spot and not lose too many spots from that restart? He's clear going down into 1, but he's going to hold it to the outside. Big dive into turn 1. He's going to retain his third position.
Yeah, early in the race, I think that's a move Heller probably just let him make. No sense in trying to battle this hard this early in the race. Something to note maybe for later in the race is while we were battling for second there with Zach Henry and Nathan Jump, Nathan Nicholson pulled out to almost a 1 second lead. We're sitting at about 9/10 of a second right now. So that is going to be interesting to see how something like that might play into a late race restart.
Looks like the first battle we have going on the racetracks between Elliott Henderson and Brandon Barkowski for the 8th position. Barkowski on the inside, but Elliott Henderson has been getting some fantastic runs coming off the corner, and he's been able to pull out down the straightaway. Looks to struggle a little bit that time by, but he still is going to manage to get a good run. I think what's helping him out here is everybody else in front of him is single file, so by the time they get to the straightaway, I say that, and Elliott Henderson really struggles getting down into turn 3, but I was going to say that he's getting a lot of draft heading down the straightaways. We're going to see it here against Josh Cottle, is that he was side by side in the center of the corner, but wasn't able to carry that through as Elliott was able to prevail. Oh, we might get contact almost between Elliott Henderson and Brandon Barkowski. Tight racing here at Twin Ring Motegi.
Yeah, Elliott Henderson sending it off into the corner. I'm not sure if something happened that we didn't see and he was sending a message to Barkowski or he just wanted to get in front of Josh Cottle. But kind of a phenomenal move by Elliott Henderson early on as we see Josh Cottle now trying to stick his nose in there and start battling.
Gotta watch out for drivers really getting tight off these corners. I've seen quite a few guys either get a little bit loose because they lose the rear end or almost drive it up towards the outside wall. We may see a couple guys here push a little bit hard and make some contact with that outside wall, especially out of turn 4. Looks to be the real problem corner tonight is 3 and 4, while 1 and 2 is more of just to try and manage your race car to set up for turn 3. Ooh, is Hunter Brittle going to try and take it to the outside? It looked like that was his plan there as the field's kind of stacked up behind Brandon Barkowski. wasn't able to get it done as that bottom lane again just looks dominant. But Christopher Heller, sorry, for the third position on Nathan Jump. This battle has come back to start once again. Nathan jumped to the outside as Heller dove it in low, and the outside does not look as powerful as it did on that initial restart as Heller was able to get a big run through. He's still going to be slightly ahead heading down into 3. I don't think this is going to be a very strong challenge here for Nathan Jump as Heller looks to be strong on the bottom, and that's going to lead the battle down to RJ Williams now for the 4th position as he's going to take it to the inside with, again, another big run up the inside. That outside lane looks to be dying out here.
Yeah, that bottom line just getting stronger and stronger as this run goes on. Nathan Jump doing a good job. All these guys are making that high line work for them for the time being, but I think as the longer this run goes, we're going to see that bottom line just becomes the one and only preferred line.
Yeah, as we're seeing the free fall there for Nathan Jump, just stuck on that outside lane. Everybody on the inside, I was having really, really big runs. I mean, he has speed tonight. We know it. He grabbed pole position, but his long run pace may struggle a little bit at this facility. That controller may be biting him a little bit with how wide these corners are. It might require a little more precision than he's capable of at the moment, but he will retain that 6th position for the moment as he's got past season's champion just behind him and Jake Miller looking to try and gain some more positions and kind of get himself back into the title fight against Nicholson. Gaps look to be opening up between our drivers at the front of the field. Nathan Nicholson with a 9/10 of a second gap to Zachary Henry behind, and then Henry with an 8/10 of a second gap to Heller behind. So our top 2 drivers really pulling away from this field at the moment with some very, very strong pace as everybody is seeming to be about a 10th off of the 2 of them. The problem is for Zachary Henry is he's just not running at as fast or faster than Nicholson to catch him. He's mimicking his lap times. He's just not able to go fast enough to close in that gap.
Yeah, at this point in the run, it seems to become a battle of track position. We're to the point now where everybody should be on pretty equal footing as far as tires go. Nathan Nicholson pulled out to that 9/10 of a second lead early in this run and really hasn't given it back. Zach Henry's pulled away from 3rd place. Chris Heller pulled out his own about 8/10 of a second lead.
Watch out, back straightaway. Heller and Barkuski looked like Henderson, sorry, not Heller. Looked like Henderson was trying to take it to the inside, and Barkuski threw a very, very hefty block on him to try and retain that position. Caudle tried to capitalize, but got a little close to that quarter panel and almost made contact. He's going to be able to keep it going, but Heller might be a little bit upset with that big of a block this early on in the race.
Yeah, I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me, but we saw Elliot Henderson for about the 3rd lap in a row throw it in there and get right on Barkuski's bumper. Maybe not be too happy with the driver of that 25 truck.
Yeah, and as he said, we've seen issues with drivers going on already this year. So we've already had a bit of controversy. These drivers might be reaching their wits' end, pretty much deciding that the most aggressive drivers are pretty much the ones that are capitalizing the most in this series so far this year. And so they might as well start doing it because it seems to be working for the other guys. And I would not be surprised to be seeing some contact going on with drivers as this race continues on. Looks to be the closest battle is gonna be between Nathan Jump and Jake Miller, as the gap in front of Jump seems to be increasing, but the gap behind seems to be closing as his long run pace does seem to be struggling. Jake Miller takes it to the inside down in turn 1 and 2. Can Jump put on any type of fight? Looks like no. He just wants to slot back in line and try and get his truck tires underneath him. But he's got to watch out as now Barkuski has started to jump after his battle with Henderson finished. And now he's looking to retain the 7th spot away from Nathan Jump, who is just really struggling on pace right now.
Yeah, might have burned up his tires early on in one of these first runs. We're seeing Nathan Jump still doing a good job of maintaining his truck, but yeah, we're seeing these drivers just kind of take advantage of him getting into the corner. Something I noticed the last couple laps through turns 1 and 2 is it even when there wasn't a truck to his inside, it looked like Nathan Jump might have been struggling to get to that bottom line, and I think that's where these drivers are getting the advantage on him right now.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it is really, really hard to get down into the corner at this racetrack. It seems to really, really be difficult. And the biggest place on this track I'm noticing drivers really have troubles right in the center of turns 3 and 4, right when these drivers downshift, as they're all negotiating lap traffic right now. That could be a problem here for Nathan Jump on the outside, as it is a very, very wide racetrack, but too wide. They might want to try and single file it out. And yes, he will to get around this lap traffic, but when they go down to turns 3 and 4, like I was saying, they get down into third gear and they really get loose, and it's hard to get back to the gas, and they've got to be so careful. And so many guys tonight I'm seeing really get loose at that part of the racetrack. Looks like gaps are starting to even out here, as the closest battle looks to possibly be between Henderson and Josh Cottle, as we're seeing a lot of things going on over here with Hunter Madalinas and Lewis Woodall, with Steven Sims behind looking to capitalize. That was almost 3 wide down the front straightaway. That battle is for the 17th position between these drivers. This is the pretty much only battle we have going on the racetrack right now. Woodall, surprisingly, is going to be able to hold it round the outside on Madalinas, who's probably not having as good of a day as he would like to be having today. Same thing with Steven Sims, who have shown some strong pace at the early portion of this season.
Ooh, Madalinas. A little bit of a, I don't know if that was a slide or a bump coming off of 4. Steven Sims is going to look to make a move on him now.
Steven Sims up the inside. Last week, I thought he probably had the pace to be the winner of the race after the first few wrecks that we had that took out a lot of his closest competitors, but problems with a penalty out of nowhere relegated him to a 10th place finish after his recovery. But kind of a missed weekend last week. Was looking to kind of bounce back here at Twin Ring Motegi, but currently in the 19th position, or sorry, 18th position. It doesn't look like that's working out for him so far.
Yeah, Bristol last week took no prisoners, kind of chewed you up and spit you out, and Nathan Jump came out on top. Drivers in a little bit more control of their own destinies this week. A lot more room to spread out if there's an incident. A lot more room to run from the guy who may or may not be mad at you. So it's interesting to see drivers like Steven Sims and Hunter Madalinas.
Yeah, I mean, it's throwing everybody for a loop. And while I was mentioning a lot of good drivers are towards the front of the field, the guys we see on average running at the front of these packs, there's a couple stragglers. There's a couple, unique guys that we don't typically see at the front of the field. And, we're talking about Nathan Jump winning last week's race. Had it not been for all the wrecks, he himself probably said that he didn't have the greatest pace at Bristol Motor Speedway and might not have performed as well, but he's on average not really a driver that does run as well. But here tonight, he has a very decent truck underneath him. He is running decently well in the 10th position, maybe not where he wanted to be after qualifying on pole, but still better than guys who have won races in the past at this series, who have been contenders for the championship. So, but then you have on the other side of the coin, guys like Hunter Madalinas, who were championship contenders in years past, but this weekend are just not running that well.
See him get up the racetrack and, almost clocks the wall, has to get on the brakes. And you're going to see here 1 trucks, 2 trucks, 3 trucks pass him, or get past him heading into turn number 3.
Yeah, that's a rough move right there, but it looks like he's going to kind of recover from it, as he's currently on the pit lane. This seems to be the end of the pit cycle for these drivers, as I'm hearing a lot of chatter on the radio that drivers are coming down pit road now. There's already a good chunk of drivers already on pit road that second position, Zachary Henry, actually looks like our leader, Nicholson, had already pit. He's just coming out of the pit lane now. So while we were talking about that with Ashton Lawson, pit cycles have begun for these drivers, and the field order is mixed up. Gotta be watching out for a caution, because that could trap some drivers a lap down.
Yeah, this is always the most tedious part of the runs here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. We'll see a lot of guys coming on pit road, a lot of guys coming off pit road, and we always, it never fails, we'll always see the split strategy where we'll see some drivers pit as early as they can, and we'll see some drivers essentially run themselves out of gas. So you always have to be careful over here of these next 5 or 10 laps as drivers on new tires try to manage drivers that are on old tires.
Yeah, and the one thing I was interested to see with Nathan Nicholson coming out of the pit lane and Christopher Heller staying out on the racetrack was whether or not he would get trapped the lap down as the leader with how big of a gap he did. And at the time of Nicholson exiting the pit lane, Heller had just barely gotten past him. So it looks like during green flag conditions, if you were to pit early and a caution would come out, there is a very good chance that you could get trapped a lap down by the leaders.
Yeah, you kind of run that ragged edge here.
All right, what I was watching was with Nicholson coming out when he did and with Henry coming out when he did, what the gap was going to be between those two. Good battle out of the pit lane between Barkowski and Fitzgerald right there. Looked to be very, very tight for Barkowski. Almost got into that driver as Fitzgerald does a lot of front end damage right
We're seeing
there.
a lot of damage on the front of the 14 of Gavin Fitzgerald. I heard some tires screeching coming off pit lane. I'm thinking that 14 truck might have spun out on the access road after his pit stop. We'll grab a replay here in a second and see if we can see what happened. But a lot of damage to the front of the 14 truck.
Yeah, and there was some pretty big chatter on the radio between Barkowski and Fitzgerald, who we saw side by side exiting the pit lane, with Barkowski saying that he actually cost him 5 spots. So that could have been some trouble there. But I'm just not sure, because it's very weird to just, be in that kind of position anyway and show up with that much front end damage and not have a caution come out. Well, while we pretty much look around trying to find out what had happened to Gavin Fitzgerald, this is them exiting the pit lane right here. Fitzgerald ahead of Barkowski. He already has that front end damage, so there must have been an incident long before the pit cycle that caused Fitzgerald to have that front end damage. But as we saw there, Barkowski did lose some positions exiting the pit lane, as that damage on Fitzgerald really slowed down both of them on the pit exit, and he's gonna lose a few spots in that process. What I'm gonna be looking at is all these drivers who are still out on the racetrack. It doesn't look to be that the fuel window is where everybody pit at. Looks to be much, much longer for some of these guys. Or actually, in fact, I believe a lot of these guys that have stayed out actually had pit under our early cautions to take fuel and purposefully run longer, as if a caution were to come out right now with how many laps are on the tires, they would have a pretty strong advantage over their competitors if they were to not come down the pit lane with them. So this is a really good call for these guys who are at the back of the field, probably not running as well, and just really needing to get off strategy to try and find some track position. So good call from Lewis Woodall here, our current leader, Anderson Bowen, Rod Fasnaugh, and Tyler McClellan, the only drivers yet to pit so far in this run.
Yeah, what we're seeing looking at timing and scoring is our top 3 right now. Lewis Woodall, Anderson Bowen, and Rod Fasnaugh. They all 3 pit under... Oh, and we have the yellow flag.
The caution's out! Exactly what we were talking about for these drivers. Looks like Hunter Brittle parked down the back straightaway. Trouble for that driver. What possibly could have happened to him there to be stopped in that kind of position? We're gonna have to be looking for a replay, as that is not a spot you stop here at this racetrack. Well, currently he's scored as being a lap down as he is still sitting on the pit lane well after this caution began. So, problems for that driver as well, who was on a strong strategy. But we're going to be looking here at the replay of Hunter Brittle and the driver he may have been battling with prior to the incident that caused his stoppage down the back straightaway. We're going to be seeing him down here in turns 1 and 2 behind the 98 truck. That's Nathan Nixon as they come out of turn 2.
This starts about a lap and a half before the incident itself. We're going to see the 99 and the 10.
The 98.
98, I'm sorry. We're going to see them essentially.
Nathan Nixon.
We're going to see them go at it here for about a lap. So just take a look and see for yourself what happens here.
So it looks to be a fantastic move there from Hunter Brittle to try and find his way around the outside of Nathan Nixon. Going to take a very wide arc in, but that's going to allow him to get a big run off. Ooh, he comes down a little bit and they make contact, but they saved it there. So no problems here. The problem is going to be right here down the back straightaway. Uh-oh, problems. And oh no, that is a phenomenally massive hit there for Hunter Brittle. Up, around, flying into space was that 10 truck, parked up against the outside wall after all was said and done, and very close here for Eric Kepf, who saw this happen right in front of his own eyes. Look at this. Oh no, not what you want to be seeing going down the back straightaway here at Twin Ring Motegi. Well, I guess we could call trouble. As we see right there, he kind of tags Brittle in the back end, turns him into the outside wall, and when he came back to the left, just never seemed to be able to save it. The truck got lost from underneath him, and at a high rate of speed, he flew to that inside wall, and well, when the immovable object gets hit, the immovable object is not moving, and Hunter Brittle's truck went flying in the other direction.
Yeah, Hunter Brittle's day obviously done. I'd be interested to see. We might not know anymore until post-race, but it seemed like those drivers were having a bit of a, let's call it a conversation on the racetrack, and obviously Hunter Brittle might have lost that one.
Yeah, a bit of controversy there, as we saw. I mean, it looked like Brittle, in the initial battle prior to that happening, when they made contact in turns 1 and 2, it looked like Brittle had just come down a little bit much, kind of overestimated how much space he had to the 98, and they made contact there. But the back straightaway, that's an unusual spot for that to happen, because they were already going essentially in a straight line. It was just the awkward place that Nixon had tagged the 10 truck that ended up sending him around. And I mean, that's going to throw the strategy all over the place for these drivers, as I'm pretty sure Lewis Woodall trapped a good number of our front runners a lap down, forcing them to take a wave around. He's going to line up in the 11th position. So fantastic strategy call for that 13 truck, as all the other leaders look to have stayed out and get their track position. So he's going to be able to pull this once again if we go green flag, and could find himself with even more track position by the end of this run. While we wait for our little co-host here to come back around, we're looking right here at our leader, Nathan Nicholson. Strongest car of the night, but it looked like on the last run that Zachary Henry had got the tires underneath him, now with the renewed track position after finally getting around the drivers he'd been battling for the second spot. He was doing a fantastic job of trying to run down Nathan Nicholson. He closed the gap a lot through the pit cycle, and he was able to gain a massive, massive gap over our leader. The problem was he still was not close enough to really make a maneuver, but now with this restart, him lining up in the second position, he's at a higher likelihood of slotting into the second spot and being much closer to our leader, rather than being stuck in a battle like he was on the previous run. So this is going to be a lot tougher here for Nathan Nicholson, as Zachary Henry is on a trip to try and get himself a victory here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. Nicholson's been on a roll so far this season, every race he's participated in so far, he's gotten the victory, and he's gonna be looking to keep that streak going. But Zachary Henry's definitely gonna want to stop him here, as we're gonna be taking the green flag as a pace car takes the hard left-hand turn. Nathan Nicholson has a bit of a gap, and he's gonna jump it early, and he's gonna get a big run. That's gonna allow Zachary Henry to be forced into a battle here with Christopher Heller, but he might be able to clear him down into one. Yes, he will. So Nicholson is not going to get as big of an advantage he had the last time by. Zachary Henry's got to make sure he doesn't get himself involved in a battle, as that could spell trouble for his chances at the victory here. But it looks to be Elliot Henderson looking to try and get a run here. Heller's going to actually just push his teammate down the back straightaway, but that's going to allow Henderson to get a big run down into 3 and 4. Not going to be able to take it, as on the outside lane, Nathan Jump, who was getting trapped out there previously, is using it to make some passes out there. So he's back in the fight now on some brand new tires on this restart. He's to the outside of Elliot Henderson for the 4th position. Is he going to be able to hold it as the top 3 are single filed out? But Nathan Jump making some big moves around that outside.
Kind of a chaotic restart all the way around, Alex. Probably the most chaotic we've seen yet tonight. We saw one truck get loose on that restart and just go for a topsy-turvy trip down the infield on the back straightaway on that restart. Everybody's starting to sort out now as we're seeing Nathan Jump battle with Elliot Henderson. Elliot looking to make that high side work here early in the run.
Yeah, Nathan Jump had taken it from the high side of turn 1 to the bottom side of turn 2 and crossed over Elliot Henderson. Made a good move to get to the inside, but it's actually going to cost him a position here, as it looks to be RJ Williams is making some strong progress on the outside, as Nathan Jump just looks to be loose in that truck. He's not able to get the power down through the corners, and he's really driving that thing on the ragged edge. That's going to really hurt his pace over the long run. Could have been the problems that we saw last time by. And look who's kind of entered the fight back here just behind Nathan Jump. William Barbagelata didn't start off with the greatest qualifying effort in the 12th position and didn't really seem to make up as much progress as Elliot Henderson did early on. But here he is inside the battle with the top 7, who have broken away from the rest of the field over a half second behind him. This is where the battle's going to be, from the 7th position up to the 1st spot, as all these guys are within a couple tenths of each other. Looks to be that the very front of the field is starting to open up a bit of a gap, and right towards the back of this top 7 is where the battle's going to be. Barbagelata kind of hounding a little bit on the back bumper, and Nathan Jump whenever he could get the chance. But we saw Jump have a fantastic restart. That could be key later on in the race if he finds himself with some good track position. He seems to be very strong in these restarts in the first few laps. That could be something to watch out for, as we've just panned over to the damaged car of Shane Neiswanger, one of our early front runners who got involved in some problems down in turns 3 and 4 with some shifting, and one of the first and likely not last drivers to suffer from that same issue. And here we have a couple drivers that had to take the wave around to get themselves back on the lead lap. Ashton Lawson and Brandon Barkuski stuck behind the 6 car of Steven Sims, probably out of position from where they wish they were, but this is still in the back half of the top 10. The problem is the top 7 guys are over a second away from all of them, so they've really fallen off in these last few laps. But, you know, driver we were talking about kind of ailing towards the back of the field, back half the field, was Steven Sims, currently sitting in the 8th position. He started in 30th for this race, so pretty much a terrible qualifying position for him, as we see him slight connection issues on that end. But he was running in the 17th position just about 15 laps ago when we last talked about him. But here he is in the 8th position, kind of battling right now with Ashton Lawson, as we're also looking at this battle here with William Barbagelata. But, ooh, Lawson, tight battle. Here he's going to actually get it to the inside with a fantastic drive off of turn 4. In theory, Sims should have the run around the outside, but Ashton Lawson is still looking low. He's going to dive it in a 1. Got to be careful here, boys. Don't run too close together. Don't want to get tagged on the left rear quarter. Ashton Lawson has got that truck planted on that white line. He's going to have a fantastic run coming out of turn 2. I think this position's had by Ashton Lawson heading down to turns 3 and 4, unless Steven Sims can find something magical on that high side. But here he goes, Ashton Lawson up the inside, clears him. Can Steven Sims get down? Yes, he will, just barely over the front nose of Brandon Barkuski.
Ashton Lawson made it look easy right there. I mean, he had that truck planted on the white line. He wasn't half a lane on it, above it. He was on it, as we're seeing Brandon Barkuski trying to do the same thing with the 6 of Steven Sims.
That could be the key for making passes around here, as we do know various other tracks here on iRacing, that painted line really gives you a lot of extra grip in those left side tires and really allows you to get some good drive through the center and off the corner in these vehicles. Could be a similar thing we have here at Twin Ring Motegi. The problem is that painted line is so thin, it's just kind of beneficial and a lot easier for some of these guys to not run right on top of it. As we see, looks like the 98 here, Nixon involved in the last previous incident, just getting passed here by Jake Miller. This is down, I believe, for the 14th position. So Jake Miller way out of line. As there's a truck who took a very unorthodox line down the back straightaway. Unsure who that was. I believe that may have been Kyle Hall in the 87. But you know, we're seeing a bunch of guys with some problems, as we see the 57 as well with some damage on the right side of his vehicle. Could have made some contact to that outside wall. We've seen that happen before. I'm seeing a bit of a battle going on for what looks to be the 16th position between Hunter Madalinas and Brett Kingcott. They're side by side heading out of turn 2. Looks like Madalinas, again, kind of struggling for a bit of pace here tonight, with Josh Cottle, who was up towards the front early on, also losing out on some track position as they're gonna stack up behind the 98 there. Madalinas gets onto the apron slightly. He's still gonna get the drive off. He's gonna clear Kingcott. Is he gonna look to the inside of Nixon? Not yet so far. That's gonna allow Josh Cottle to get to the inside here. He's on a recovery trip back to the front of the field. He's gonna pretty easily make the pass there on. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for some technical issues here on our end. We've gotten everything sorted back out as we're watching Zachary Henry leads his way onto the pit lane. Drivers are in their pit cycle right now. We were about to have an extremely close battle between our front two of Nicholson and Henry, as we're looking now at our current leader before the pit cycle, Heller, who's now coming into the pit lane. As we saw Nicholson, who just pit last time by Heller, almost missing the pit entry, nailing it into the pit wall. And Jeff, we got these drivers coming into the pit lane, and we saw that really pay off for Henry on the last run. Do you think, with how close Henry was this time by, that he could find his way ahead of Nicholson as we're coming through everything? Well, we were seeing tire fall off that was equivalent to about 1 second of fall off. And so Nicholson decided, I'm going to make the first move. I'm going to pit in first. And it has paid off wonderfully for that driver, as he has gained a humongous gap over his nearest competitor, Zachary Henry. So much so that Zachary Henry has actually fallen behind the 37 of Elliot Henderson. Everybody else ahead of them currently, which is the current top 10, has yet to make a pit stop. And so they're hoping that this rolls through all the way, as currently Nicholson, Henderson, Henry, and Heller are the only drivers who have pit so far that are currently on the lead lap as of right now. But as drivers make their way onto pit road, we're going to see more and more drivers find their way back on the lead lap. But they've got to hope this stays green just for a little while longer, because it would be very, very bad for them if the caution were to come out.
Yeah, and as I recollect my thoughts here, Alex, 42 laps to go. Do we think these drivers who had just pit are going to have to make one more pit stop, or do you think they can make it on fuel from here?
Well, it's so far looked like that these drivers can make about 30-ish laps on a set of fuel, like a tank of fuel, and I just don't think they could make it. That is way too many laps to try and cover at this big of a facility that I don't think there's really any way you can make it to the finish. These drivers are going to have to pit one more time. The awkward timing of the previous caution. As we get another caution, Jeff, here we
Wow.
go.
Right on cue.
Brett Kingcott. Mind you, we have currently 9 drivers that are out on the racetrack yet to make a pit stop. This is a phenomenal strategy for all of these drivers, as they're going to have pretty solid track position with how many drivers they trapped a lap down and much newer tires than their competitors. Yeah, the trouble may have been once again. We're looking in 3 and 4, and
Oh, and there he goes again. Oh,
we
no.
saw this happen to Shane Neiswanger earlier in the event. Just an aggressive downshift in a third gear down in turns 3 and 4. Spins him instantaneously like a top. We've seen this happen already so many times that you'd think you would not do it again, but this driver seems to be struggling so far with that shifting, and this time much more damage as he tows it to the pit lane.
Yeah, kind of a bad day just gets worse for Shane Neiswanger. I'm not seeing him on pit road, so I'm wondering if he did.
Yeah, and a few of them were pretty strong front runners in the case of Ashton Lawson, Brandon Barkowski. I, our leader, or what you used to be leader, Nathan Nicholson, has decided to come down the pit lane. He had a pit stop. Same thing with Zachary Henry. So this is an interesting strategy call for these guys. They want to try and stretch it to the end, I imagine. Because last time we had cautions back to back and they were able to stretch it to about lap 37 to 38. Seems to be cautions around this racetrack really help you save a lot of gas. So these leaders are coming, or used to be leaders, are coming down pit road to get the tanks full. Everybody who stayed out is essentially hoping that they get another caution far enough into the run that they have the track position and the tires over their competitors. But at the
Looking at
same breath, everybody else kind of wants it to go green so that they save fuel to the end and have to avoid losing a lap full of time through a pit cycle.
Yeah, looking at timing and scoring, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Alex. I'm showing Elliot Henderson, Christopher Heller, and William Barbagelata stayed out. Did any of those three, were they on pit road when the yellow came out, or do we know?
They had pit previously, so they had pit on the last pit cycle alongside with Nicholson and Zachary Henry. All these drivers just came down pit road about 8 or 9 laps ago, so we're
Okay.
about that far into the run by the time the caution came out. So these drivers, there's no way they're making it to the finish on this tank of fuel. They are essentially hoping for a caution within the next 20 or so laps that gives them the advantage to basically just take tires and fuel and guarantee they could make it to the end.
So an interesting, probably the most interesting strategy we've seen all night. 3 drivers have stayed out, and then Ashton Lawson will be the first driver on those fresh tires, and he leads a group of guys that have not been up front hardly at all tonight. Fourth on back, we've got Ashton Lawson, Brandon Markuski, Zach Henry, Lewis Woodall, Brett Kincott, Eric Kemp, Anderson Bowen, Nathan Nicholson, who was your leader when the pit cycle began, I believe. He's going to line up back in the 12th position with RJ Williams, Matt Durr, Nathan Jump, and Nick Martin. So the running order turned on its head here with about 37 laps to go.
And seems to have been a bit of a costly pit stop for the 99, as he seems to be way out of position relative to Zachary Henry. Did we possibly see Zachary Henry take 2 tires? I was not intently watching the pit cycle there, but Nicholson may have taken 4 tires while Henry, in comparison, took 2 tires, because he is alongside a lot of the other drivers who we know stayed out by the time of caution and gained all that track position.
Yeah, Zach Henry lining up 6th. I didn't catch that. Good observation, Alex. I would imagine he had to have taken 2 tires. I don't think there's any way he could have came on pit road 11th or 12th in line and come out 3rd with Ashton Lawson and Brandon Barkuski. So definitely some tire strategy here on the part of Zach Henry. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder, Alex, you might know a little bit more than I do, but that seems like it could be a beneficial move if the tires, I mean, if they keep grip, if Zach Henry is able to start up front here, stick with Ashton Lawson, Brandon Barkuski, that just puts him that many more positions in front of Nathan Nicholson as we're going to see a restart here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble for some track position. Gonna have to see how it works out for him. But Elliott Henderson, Christopher Heller, and William Barbagelata stay out, and they lead the field to green. Big launch for Elliott Henderson, probably the biggest of all the leaders, as we get a caution crash in the back of the field. Sounds like Rodriguez may have gotten involved with some words going on over the radio. Gotta be looking at what was happening back there. May have been some problems in the back. May want to look at the 71, Aaron McEachern. Might have been some problems down there. These drivers seem to have been a bit out of line at the time of the restart, so could have some trouble.
In turn 3, right as the restart happened to bring that yellow out, I'm not exactly sure who it was. It looks like, yeah, it's going to be the 71 of Aaron McEachern, and that's going to bring the yellow back out before the field really even gets down into turn number 1. An interesting call by race control.
Yeah, it looked like the 22 there of Michael Barbagelata, a little bit aggressive there as they were trying to catch up to the field for the green flag that had just came out. And just a pretty big overshoot down into turn 3 to make contact there with the 71. And a bit of an unnecessary caution, but at least no harm, no foul to anybody else out on the racetrack. May need to get another set of tires strapped onto that vehicle, as he's still currently sitting on the pit lane. But we're going to be going back to green here in a little while here, as the field is going to have to cycle through and get everybody all sorted out in their cahoots. But this is going to help the guys who just pit. I was saying that it's going to be a little bit close on fuel. And for all those guys who just pit and got their fuel, they just got another free 3 to 4 laps to save some gas. And that may be the key to help them to the finish.
It looks like Elliott Henderson was one and done for that restart. He hit pit road last time by, so he's going to give up the lead, and it looks like he's going to come out about 15th or 16th on the racetrack. That'll yield the lead back to Chris Heller and William Barbagelata for this next restart.
It may be the call that may win him the race, because if I'm wrong about all the drivers who just pit and how much they could stretch the fuel, and Elliott Henderson knows it to a T, and he's the last car with fuel out on the racetrack. Gamble of a lifetime for that driver. The problem is he has lost a significant amount of track position in the process, and we've already seen cautions come out pretty regularly here at this race tonight, and I would not be surprised to see another one poorly timed before the finish that keeps Elliott out of line.
Yeah, your usual booth mate, Kyle, he would say that these races usually tend to start with a green flag run with a caution sprinkled here and there, but as we get down to it, as these drivers get more aggressive coming towards the end of the race, we're probably going to see a lot more yellows that really, most of the time, just kind of throw strategy out the window. This caution essentially an extension of the caution before it. I don't think any drivers really had the chance to make up too many positions getting into turn number one, maybe just where they were on the racetrack relative to each other when that yellow came out. So it's going to be interesting. These guys have made their bed, and I think they're just going to have to lay in it for the duration of this race.
Yeah, the one long shot strategy here is this devolves into the average Richmond race on iRacing. It is Richmond week this week in officials if you're not an avid iRacing user. And so one of the things that happens at Richmond often is the first half to 3/4 of the race will go green. It'll be pretty clean. You'll get decent long runs. And then once that one caution comes out, it just devolves into caution after caution after caution after caution. So I'm not saying it will happen at this race tonight, but there's the chance of it happening, and the long shot of these guys who stayed out basically being gifted a way to make it to the end of the race on fuel.
Yeah, really anything can happen from here on out as the field's got one to go at the line there. We have a lot of different things that could happen. We could potentially, and it's a big potentially, go green from here. And we could always see what happened at Bristol. We could see incidents. We could see guys that haven't been up front at all, strategy or not, be in contention to win this race. And that's just kind of the magic of the Great Lakes Truck Series.
Yeah, and one big thing that we have because of Elliott Henderson pitting is look at the two drivers that just moved up to the second row who were a little bit in different positions before. Now you have Ashton Lawson in the third position, which is a phenomenal spot to try and slot your way into the second position. Unlike normal, though, our leader, Christopher Heller, has taken the outside lane, likely to help his teammate Zachary Henry, who's lined up on those two tires, has been one of our fastest drivers all night. That could also be an advantageous position because he went from 6th to 4th. So as we're going to be coming to the green flag with the pace car taking the left-hand turn, we got to watch this restart. And there they go, the 25-11 duo rockets to the lead of the race. Is Zachary Henry going to make the move on Heller? He will not just yet. But on those two new tires, I feel like that has to be the strategy for him as he's put himself in a lot of danger as Barbagelata gets right up to the rear bumper, but caution is out once again. Problems at the back of the field. Oh, we gotta watch out because if this keeps happening, that track position for Christopher Heller and William Barbagelata may just prove to be advantageous.
We'll figure out what happened there, Alex. Looking around the track, I didn't see any signs of incident. I wonder if someone maybe just got really loose getting into one. As we work to pull up the replay here, if OBS would respond. There it goes.
Oh, I may have possibly figured out where the problem may have been. Tyler McClellan in the 95, I think, was the cause of the caution down in turns 1 and 2. We're going to have to be watching him down the front straightaway here in just a second because I believe that's where the problem occurred. We're going to see him kind of falling off the pack a little bit, a bit distant, but as we head down into turns 1 and 2, we're going to see the truck just slip out from underneath him. He corrects it. It overcorrects out into the outside wall. Big contact for the 95 truck. that sends his front end into the outside wall and is going to bring out the caution. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be having another restart here at Twin Ring Motegi. And now 2511 dominates the front row. I don't know how the restart shenanigans are going to work this time around, but it worked out phenomenally the last time by. We may have a stranglehold here at the front of the field.
Yeah, 2511, Chris Heller, Zach Henry did a phenomenal job executing that restart. And as we keep having these restarts, Alex, I'm wondering if the longer we're under caution here, how much of an advantage does that give Chris Heller and Zach Henry on the front row? Two drivers who are, let's see here, by my tabulations, it looks like they're have 8 laps older tires than most of the rest of these guys. The longer we run under caution, is that something that will help those drivers, or is that something we would only really see under green flag wear?
I think the big thing with the cautions right now is, yes, there is a bit of tire difference, and so every single time those newer tires get run in a little bit hot and cool back down, it just makes them worse and worse. And those old tires have already done it enough times, it's not going to get that much worse for them. So that's where Heller and Barbagelata have a big advantage. Also advantage for Zachary Henry, who only took 2 tires the last time by. He kind of wants more heat cycles to balance out the tires. But the big thing for the 2 drivers that stayed out, Heller and Barbagelata in first and third, is that they didn't take fuel on the last 3 cautions ago. And that was a big deal because everybody else was pretty confident they could make it to the end on fuel, but these guys looked very unlikely to make it to the end. But the more and more laps they spend under caution with this high amount of throttle racetrack where you're burning a lot of gas, they're saving a lot under every single caution. It's why you see them right up against that white line, as they're trying to make the track as short as possible.
Well, second caution in the row. Looking at the running order here, noticing Nathan Nicholson has actually managed, between these 2 cautions, to gain about 5 positions. And that initial restart after the caution during the green flag pit cycle, I believe he had lined up 14th on the racetrack. He's going to line up for this restart 9th. So for as much as these cautions are helping our 2 drivers up front who stayed out, I think it's also helping Nathan Nicholson. I think he's being able to take advantage of some of these guys on the restart, maybe due to track position, and then it's gonna be interesting, Alex. I'm running out of words.
Yeah, interesting is one of the iconic lines here at the Great Lakes Truck Series. Seems to be the story every single week. Something interesting, the best way you can put it, happens on the racetrack. But yeah, as you talk, Nathan Nicholson currently in the 9th position on those 4 brand new tires. He went out of his way to make sure that he took those tires, which is actually technically the highest position car on track with the newest tires, because everybody in front of him was about a few laps older tires than him. So he technically has a newer tire and seemed to be taking really, really good advantage of that the last couple restarts. Let's see what he could do on the bottom lane. We might have to be watching out for that neon yellow car in the background, as we're going to be watching the restart here with 2511 and Christopher Heller and Zachary Henry on the front row. And then you have William Barbagelata and Ashton Lawson behind them, a couple drivers that have gotten very strong at the latter part of this event.
Yeah, so we're gonna line up for this restart, and I gotta be honest, Alex, I'm not even sure anymore of what we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see Chris Heller and Zach Henry play a little bit of play teammates on this restart to get down into 1 okay, and then I think it's gonna be on from there.
I'm going to be watching what happens between Barbagelata and Zachary Henry. Zachary Henry looked vulnerable the last restart. As they go green, didn't look to be as good of a restart that time for Henry. But Barkowski, another driver in 2511 with a big run behind Barbagelata. He looked to want to try and make the pass up the inside, but got blocked. That's going to allow Henry to slot into second. And Barbagelata is actually in a bit of a battle here with Ashton Lawson around the outside. He's going to clear him. And oh! Nicholson goes around down the back straightaway. He gets loose out of turn 2. Is everybody going to miss him? Yes, they will. Phenomenal maneuvers there to not hit that driver.
I cannot believe that Nathan Nicholson did not get hit right there. That was probably the most that was probably the most dangerous spot he could have spun out, and I don't know how.
A couple drivers actually happy over the radio given the issues that Nicholson has had this week with some other drivers, but we're going to be watching as he heads out of turn 2 here behind the one car of Brett Kingcott. He's hooked right behind him, goes up the track a little, takes a hard left-hand turn, and just gets loose. Oh, very lucky there for Eric Kepf to not get clipped, and phenomenal avoidance maneuvers there for RJ Williams to not collect himself in that incident. Again, another no harm, no foul wreck other than for Nathan Nicholson, who is the most dominant driver of the race up to this point. He's going to relegate himself down to the last car in the lead lap with that incident right there.
Yeah, surprising mistake from Nathan Nicholson on the restart. Man, oh my god, I was for sure he was going to get T-boned, and that was going to be the end of a lot of people's days. I still don't know how any of those drivers missed him. A phenomenal save after that incident from Nicholson, and it's going to set us up again, Alex. We've yet to get in a full green flag lap, probably in the last 30 laps.
Well, I alluded to it before. It's Richmond week. These drivers have gotten used to dealing with this exact kind of race. They go a lot of green flag laps, and then we get a lot of cautions, and it so far seems to be heading to be true. This has happened pretty frequently in series pass, where we've had things happen like that a lot. Bristol was a bit unique last week, as we had so little vehicles left that were even somewhat in the battle for the win that we went green at the finish of the race. But this is more typical to the Great Lakes Truck Series. We typically get something like this. We get the guys who are very, very good at restarts finding their way towards the front, but more than anything, if you find yourself as the leader by the end of these races, you are looking nice and pretty to find yourself in victory lane. But it's without any questions about fuel for a couple of our drivers here at the front, and about tires for, at least in the case of Zachary Henry on the 2 tires, and for everybody else on 4 behind him. It seems to also be like a lot of chatter over the driver radio of words being thrown back and forth between various drivers throughout the field, none very typically directed, but seems to be the culture that we're starting to develop here. It's starting to be a bit of a rough and tumble, beat and bang kind of aggressive style of driving. It's definitely fun to watch here as a spectator and commentator at the same time. And I'm looking to see how this keeps going throughout the year, because we're very early on in the season. We're a long ways before the playoffs begin. We still have all the playoffs races before the end of the season. And we're already beginning the year with a lot of controversy.
Yeah, a lot of controversy, a lot of tempers, and a lot of bad blood on the racetrack between a lot of drivers, and more specifically between 2 teams who shall not be named. And it's just something that, Alex, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be settled on the racetrack. A lot of these guys talk a big game, and a lot of these guys can't back up that game. And that's, I think, why we've seen drivers like Nathan Nicholson be so polarizing in the Great Lakes Truck Series, is because he's one of the few drivers who can talk a big game and back it up on the racetrack.
Yeah, and we've seen it happen, and it's kind of a problem, but these drivers are finding some issues here and there, and again, kind of like what you said with the Ross Chastain thing. It's like, we know he's got ability, we know he's got pace, he just has problems with other drivers out on the racetrack, and he does everything it takes to try and get victories. And that's going to bite him at some point, because some of these other guys are not just going to lay down and let him win every race. They're going to do everything they can to get him out of the way and take the victory for themselves.
So, one to go again. It looks like we're going to have 21 laps to go on the restart. Chris Heller, Zach Henry, William Barbagelata, and Ashton Lawson are going to be your top four for this restart. And Alex, we're going to try it again. All right, Alex Kalanick steps away for a second. Pace cars in turn number 4 right now heading down pit road. We're going to get a restart here with 20 laps to go. It's Chris Heller and Zach Henry on the front row.
Apologies for the muted microphone there, but 2511 gets a big launch. Christopher Heller takes it to the lead, but not as good of a launch for Zachary Henry. He should be able to clear himself in a 1, and yes, he's going to be able to. Barkuski battles down into turns 1 and 2 up the inside of Ashton Lawson, almost gets into the back bumper of William Barbagelata, but Barbagelata is on the back bumper of Zachary Henry at the same time. Big battles going on at the front of the field. They know a caution could come out at any second. They want to make sure they get every spot they can, and even behind them, Lewis Woodall on the off strategies all day. Barbagelata is hounding that back bumper and corner entry of Zachary Henry. He's got to watch out. That could cause some problems. Ashton Lawson, big run around the outside. I don't know if he's going to be able to clear Barkuski down into turns 1 and 2, but ladies and gentlemen, we have made a lap. We have gone back to green fully as Barkuski sends it up the inside. He's not going to be able to hit him, at least. He's going to hold it on the bottom, but
There he goes!
Woodall, there goes Brandon Barkuski around. More drivers involved. Eric Kepf and plenty others. RJ Williams as well. Oh no, not another wreck.
Yeah, it was easy to see that one coming. Brandon Barkuski was as tight as we've seen anybody racing off of 2 all day long.
Yeah, that just looked to be some extremely tight racing, unlike some of the other stuff we've been seeing going on tonight with the cautions. But, yeah, looked to be Barkuski just kind of kept going up and up and up and up, and Lewis Woodall that close to the back bumper just nicked him in the right rear and sent him around. But we're going to get a closer analysis of the replay this time by. But, it's going to be a little bit hard to truly put the blame on one or the other, but it's just a little bit of tight racing as we see. Both Ashton Lawson and Barkuski kind of check up a little bit for some reason, and Lewis Woodall was kind of trying to take the corner normally and swing up to the outside, and just as they checked up, he got back into the right rear quarter and spun Barkuski around. I'm also going to want to see with some of the drivers behind who ended up wrecking, but this is a big incident for plenty of our front runners tonight.
Yeah, 3 Great Lakes staples involved in that wreck. 4 really. Brandon Barkuski, RJ Williams, Eric Kepf, and Elliot Henderson all involved. It was the admins. It was all of them. All the admins wrecked.
Yeah, very rough incident, but one driver that I did notice made it through the wreck has been very, very quiet tonight, has not been having a fantastic night, but is technically our points leader, Hunter Madalinas in the 9 car. I want to see his perspective of this incident because there was a lot of drivers wrecking in front of him, and he just narrowly managed to make it past all of it as everybody was crashing in front of him. Had he gotten into that incident with the problems with Nathan Nicholson, he may have lost the points lead right there because Nicholson was setting up to try and take the points lead back after he missed the race last week, but with that big miss from Madalinas, he may be able to retain it. Yeah, I mean, we're running out of time for these drivers to really make a move and try and find their way to the front. That's probably why we saw so much massive aggression as we saw how Hunter Madalinas missed that incident. Very, very tight for him as the driver just ahead. He narrowly ran into the back bumper of. That's what I was talking about with how close it was for Madalinas. I mean, I was talking about the point standings before. I was going to say next time we go to caution, I was going to talk about it because with all the problems we've had tonight, I was going to really shake up the point standings. Currently, our points leader, Hunter Madalinas, as we just saw the onboard of, is currently our points leader over Nathan Nicholson by about 7 points. And he's currently in the 9th position. Nicholson down to the 15th position. So that'll be a good points gain for Madalinas. But he's got to worry about Barkuski, who's only about 9 points behind him. And currently, Barkuski. Oh, right. He just got into that incident. I just almost forgot about that. So now the two drivers who were closest to taking the points lead away from Madalinas tonight with their performance have both gotten into massive incidents. And actually, as I keep going down this points list, you have Barkuski, RJ Williams, Eric Kepf. Those three drivers all just got involved in this latest incident. So all drivers set to make a big points gain towards the lead of this championship have all lost it on a singular caution right there and then. And after that, it's an absolute mix of drivers. So it's looking pretty set that Madalinas exits this event that he had not run very well at so far with the points lead.
Yeah, the cream. They say the cream always rises to the top, but here in the Great Lakes Truck Series, anything can happen as we're on 1 to go again. Setting up for our 8th restart of the race. Christopher Heller, Zach Henry, both drivers still in control of this field. I just noticed in P5, Lewis Woodall, Elliot Henderson, Nathan Jump Anderson, Bowen are going to line up as the drivers that are on the freshest tires. William Barbichelata as well. And Alex, I still think it's anyone's race.
I mean, it could be anybody's race. We saw how close the restart was between, Henry Barbergelata. The problem was Heller really did pull out to a decent gap over his teammate. Those two tires that Zachary Henry has really does not seem to be doing him any favors. Looks to be making his truck very, very tight entry center of the corner. And as we go green, that's going to be something we're going to be looking out for as the pace car takes the left-hand turn. And Heller with a big lead on the outside lane, but that does not matter. Zachary Henry's going to get the jump alongside him. Some good communication in that Discord. Looks to almost be 5 wide down the front straightaway. And, oh, big contact with Senzi across the nose of, I believe, Nicholson. But we've got a caution going on behind him, I believe. Big wreck with the 28 car. Got to figure out what driver that is. That's James Shiflett, who got spun around. You see Matthew Durr spun around just ahead of him. But that was a messy restart as drivers are vying for every position they can get. Yeah, so we're seeing James Shiflett here. A big run from Barkuski from the back up the inside. He's going to take it 4 wide. Oh, and just nails the back bumper of Kyle Hall, who gets sent up into Shiflett, who had Matthew Durr to the outside. Just some overly aggressive racing from the 25, who is desperately trying to make up positions after his previous wreck and ends up causing another caution. So you see it a bit of a wider shot here. You see from how far back Barkuski came to get into the back bumper of Kyle Hall to send him up into the 28 and the 2 car. And the two of them just spin out with almost no hope of recovery as they were already 4 wide by that point entering turn 1. You know, it's a wide racetrack, but these drivers are still finding ways to run out of room at this place. I believe it was Senzi, who got very, very loose entering turn 1. I need to see what had happened with that driver to get him so loose. As we see right here, almost 3 wide, he's going to be... Oh, right off the front nose of, I believe that's Rod Fasnaugh. He's going to get away. He got away with that one, though, and that's where I thought the wreck was going to happen. But then it happened behind theirs with the incident we just saw the replay of. So that was some good driving for that driver, but a bit worse driving for some of the other ones in the back. All right, well, Jeff, by the time we get to the green flag next time, we are going to be less than 10 laps to go to the end of this event. These drivers went from about lap 85 when we had the initial caution at about lap 81, and now we have pretty much cut out about 25 laps from this race. These drivers are finding a really, really good way of running out of time to really make any maneuvers and really change positions other than at the very back.
Yeah, driver chat will be interesting after this race. But as we're setting it up, yeah, you said it, Alex. Everybody's everywhere. I mean, 30 laps ago, 45 minutes ago, I would have said Chris Heller and Zach Henry didn't stand a chance. And now I'm not sure. I think William Barbagelata is still in a good position if he can get more than a lap and a half to set those two up. Chris Heller and Zach Henry are going to continue to work with each other on these restarts to make sure that they have control of the field getting down to turn number 1. And who knows? We might see another incident. We might start going into overtime. We might really start calling into question some of these drivers' tires, their fuel mileage.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here for Barbagelata is he's got to find a way to get himself rolling just a little bit before Christopher Heller hits the throttle and takes the green flag, because Heller and Henry are going to be talking to each other, trying to negotiate the restart, and what Barbagelata needs to have a chance at winning this race is slot himself into the second spot so he can, as quickly as possible, go after Heller, hopefully before a caution comes out. Now, you have the other case of Ashton Lawson on the outside lane. He knows that at the same time as Heller, Henry's going to go. So he needs to try and do the same thing and beat Barbagelata into turn 1. We haven't seen it happen yet, but that's the key for him to try and get into a prime position to win this race. For everybody else behind, Woodall, Madalinas, who has mystically found himself in the 6th position, or actually, no, it's Nathan Jump, apologies. They've got to try and find their way up into the next row to give himself a shot.
Yeah, every driver has it in their head what they need to accomplish on this restart, and less than half of them are going to be able to get that done as we go green with 11 laps to go, Alex.
Well, I was talking about it. Good restart for Barbagelata. He's side by side with Zachary Henry down into turn 1. He's going to be able to capitalize as he's on the dominant lane here at this racetrack. And look at the big run he gets off of turn 2. Ashton Lawson as well. He's going to find his way into out of turn 2 on the inside. Is he going to be able to carry it down into turn 3?
Oh, there they go again.
Oh, no. Disaster for the back of the field. Eric Kett, Kyle Hall. I missed who the other driver was that was involved in that incident. Looks like that's the 91 of Austin Moore. We were setting up for a fantastic battle for the lead right there, but once again, problems out of turn 2. These drivers are pretty much either wrecking down the straightaway, down into 1, or they're wrecking out of turn 2. It seems to be the problem corner tonight. As we're looking at the 63 of Eric Kepf, and it looks to be the wreck happened just ahead of him, with the 16 of Fasnacht and the 87 of Kyle Hall making contact out of turn 2. We're seeing Kyle Hall get a big run on the 16, but Fasnacht gets very, very loose. He makes contact, they get collected. Eric Kepf just a victim. Austin Moore even a bigger victim as he slams the door of Eric Kepf. That's going to pretty much take him and Kepf out of the race entirely, with massive engine damage for the two of them. You're seeing Austin Moore right here. He looked to be clear, but out of nowhere, Eric Kepf bounces off the inside wall, flies up the racetrack into that 91 truck. Engine is completely dead in that vehicle. He's going to have to tow it off the racetrack, and Eric Kepf smoking out the back bumper. We're going to be looking at the onboard here of Eric Kepf coming through turn 2. He's going to see it happen in front of him. He's going to want to check up. And he almost missed it, but just narrowly got clipped in the incident. And he felt the hit from Austin Moore as the front end of his truck got sent up and into the air in that incident. Big hits for these drivers very late in the race. Eric Kepf 5th in the point standings. Austin Moore 6th in the point standings. So the high up in the championship for these two drivers is going to end in disaster here at Twin Ring Motegi.
Yeah, a lot of drivers who we don't see.
Yeah, unlike last season, so far this year, prior to this event, Eric Kepf had an average of about 10 incident points per race, which is a very, very high amount, mind you. You know, typical, disqualification for iRacing official races are usually 17, so there's been a lot of problems going on for Eric Kepf this year that probably took him out of a lot of good finishes, but in the same breath, our points leader, Hunter Madalinas, has 11 on average. So it's not to say that it entirely takes you out of the championship, but it's definitely something you want to try and start minimizing. Now, we're going to be setting up for a much more interesting restart this time by, as we're going to be seeing Christopher Heller leading the green, as we've seen him do for the last almost 30 plus laps. Barber Gelada is going to line up on the outside in the second row, as I imagine he's going to take the inside alongside his teammate Zachary Henry, and we'll see if they get another gigantic restart like they've been getting the last few times around. The last time was kind of an outlier compared to the rest of the restarts so far tonight.
Alex, I don't know. I'm going to need you to check this for me, but I'm concerned that this race might hit a time limiter before the end of it. I believe this race is limited to 1 hour and 55 minutes, and I think we're coming up on that here in the next 5 minutes.
You do make a good point there, Jeff. If these guys don't go green and we get another quick caution, these caution laps are very, very long. It's about an average of a 36 to 37 second lap time around this racetrack under green, but under caution, it's upwards of 1 minute and 30 seconds. We only have about 7 minutes left in this event. So
Alex, I see
if
the timer right here. There's 3 minutes left in this race, so once we go green, it's probably only going to be about 2 laps to the finish, and if we get a caution, that's going to be it. It'll be over.
Yeah, this is going to be dangerous for these guys. They pretty much have to have it go green to not run out of time in this session. And this is going to be rough here, Jeff. They got to get going and get going fast. They going to be having 5 laps to go once they get green flag racing. If we get one more wreck, it's over, and Christopher Heller is going to be our winner. Pace car is going to take the left-hand turn right about now. Christopher Heller and Zachary Henry in a massive early jump for those two drivers. It should be an easy position here as they're 4 wide for the 4th position behind. Jake Miller doesn't know where to go behind him, but Madalinas, our points leader, taking full advantage of that. He's going to find his way into the 4th spot. Phenomenal restart for that driver, and he's going to gain a lot of points. Oh no, Barbachelata loose. He's in the outside wall. Is he going to come back up? Oh, they're wrecking, Jeff. Big wreck down into turn 3. Oh no, I think it's over. Christopher Heller may be your race winner
Yeah,
because this caution may end it.
we're gonna find out here what essentially what the server decides to do. A lot of squirrely trucks there. I cannot believe the only truck we saw get all the way around was Brandon Barkuski in the 25. We saw William Barbagelata. Looks like he got a bad bump about halfway down the back straightaway. And you're right, Alex. If this is the end of the race, I mean, Chris Heller and Zach Henry. I mean, it's been a long time, if ever, in the Great Lakes Truck Series since I think we timed out at the end of a race, and Heller and Henry are gonna steal one.
Yeah, this is a big win for these two drivers, but on the other end of the spectrum, it's a big win for Hunter Madalinas. You know, I talked so much earlier in the day about how he was struggling with speed, and pretty much he'd been around and outside the top 15 almost the entire race up until the end, and all of a sudden, here he is. He finds himself in a 3rd position, and yet the server has seemed to have taken the white flag, I think. So I think the race may be over, Jeff. I think we're almost out of time here because according to my session, I'm looking to see that there's about 3.5 minutes left before the expiration of the event. And as of right now, Heller, Henry, Madalinas, you top 3. Then you have Woodall with a fantastic run to the end. I believe that's the 98 of Nixon, who we saw involved in a pretty significant wreck with Hunter Madalinas earlier on in the event. He's in the 5th position. Steven Sims, the good recovery up to the 6th spot. Jake Miller, we just saw in that wreck. He's in the 7th spot, so he managed to get it rolling fast enough to retain his position. Nathan Jump, who was in the outside wall just before that big wreck down the back straight. And believe it or not, Nicholson in the 9th spot. After everything that's happened to him tonight, he's found his way back into the top 10. Well, every caution is about 4 laps from what I'm seeing. We've gone through about 2. They take about an average of 1 minute and 30 seconds, and with about 2 minutes left, Jeff, I think this race is about over. There may be a chance the server decides that we're going to take the green-white checkered, and that's going to end it. Any other flag or anything else is just going to end the race after that, as I've seen that before, where technically the session is over, but they do the next green flag run until the next flag. So interested to see whether the race decides to end under caution here within the next minute, or if we manage to get a green-white checkered in.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we are about the only ones here who don't know. Obviously, the drivers on track will have access to that exact timer in their F menu, and I think you're right, Alex. I have to imagine that once we go green here, I have to imagine that's it. Looking at the time, accounting for the fact that they paced for probably, you know, between gridding and the green flag, it was probably 4 minutes. I think 10 o'clock is going to be the cutoff. So in my head, if I'm a driver, if I'm someone on the pit box helping these drivers, this is it. Christopher Heller, Zach Henry, Lewis Weddle, Hunter Madalinas, all of these guys have to be racing like it's the end of the race, because it is, and I don't think you're going to get another green-white checkered.
Yes, well, in about 10 seconds, we'll see what the server decides, as this race was set to be 1 hour and 55 minutes long. Obviously, you have about the 2-minute long grid prior to the race event starting, and we have just ticked over the 1 minute 55 second timer. So, sorry, the 1 hour 55 minute timer, my mistake, and it's still going. Looks like we may be able to get a green-white checkered into the finish of the race, because everybody is 2x2 ready to go green this time by. This is going to be it for all the drivers. If a caution comes out on this first lap, it's over. But if they reach the white flag, we're going to have probably the craziest white flag in Great Lakes Truck Series history. Here we go as the drivers roll through turns 3 and 4. They're coming out of turn 4. The pace car is going to make the left-hand turn once they get towards the straightaway. They're laying back a lot. Christopher Heller's going to lead the green, and here they go. Christopher Heller with a massive jump. Zachary Henry's not going to be able to follow nearly as closely. Lewis Woodall is on the outside, pretty equal with Henry and Madalinas. Madalinas has got the better lane, though, in the inside lane. Can anybody put a challenge up to Heller, or are we going to get a caution here at the end? Battle is for the third position. Woodall does not look to be able to challenge it, as he's going to lose a bit of pace there in the outside lane. Is Madalina's going to try and challenge for the second spot? No, he will not. Nixon is looking for the battle for the fourth spot, sorry. Contact between Henry and Madalinas. Madalinas struggling a little bit. Lewis Woodall looking to the inside. He's not going to be able to do it. Christopher Heller is going to take the white flag. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the white flag. It's going to go green to the finish no matter what. Can Henry put up a fight to Christopher Heller on the last lap? It does not look to be. The gap is just simply too big, but the battle could be for the second spot between him and Hunter Madalinas. Madalinas actually disappears for a quick second. Is he going to dive it down into turn 3? Is he going to give the bumper to Zachary Henry? I don't know if he's going to be able to. He's really, really close, but I don't think he's going to be able to get the run. He gets a little bit tight on corner exit. Christopher Heller is going to roll out of turn 4. He's going to win that twin ring Motegi. Zachary Henry comes second. Hunter Madalina slots into third. Lewis Woodall with a fantastic run to fourth. Nathan Nixon with another fantastic run to the 5th position. Steven Sims 6th. Nicholson recovers to the 7th spot. Jake Miller holds on to 8th. Nathan Jump 9th. And Senzi rounds out your top 10. Oh my goodness, Jeff. That was quite the race end for the last 40 laps.
Yeah, I think that was a Price is Right finish for these guys. Probably going to end up being the longest race in Great Lakes Truck Series history, using the full hour and 55 minutes to get this in. Chris Heller, Zach Henry, Hunter Madalinas, Lewis Woodall, Nathan Nixon, your top 5. And Alex, I think Chris stole one here. 45 minutes ago, I don't think either of us thought Chris would have had a chance, but he was in the right position when that first caution came out during green flag pit stops, and for everyone else, it was downhill from there.
Yeah, Christopher Heller, I would definitely say, stole this one. It looked like Barber Gelada was in contention for a little bit, as he was on a similar strategy, but with Zachary Henry being in the mix at the front of the field, it pretty much meant nobody ever had a true challenge to Heller. as almost every time those two would dominate the restart, take the front two spots, and left nobody with any challenge to either of them. And that's how it ended up tonight. Christopher Heller, Zachary Henry, the top two for 25-11, locking out the front row tonight. But Madalinas with a fantastic run to the end to find himself in the third position. I mean, absolutely fantastic stuff for that driver. But, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully in a little bit here we'll be able to talk to our leader, but I suppose in the meantime we should probably go through our finishing order, as I'm sure with all the wrecks and everything else that happened tonight, it was all over the place, up and down the field. We saw this front of the field stay the same. Christopher Heller, Zachary Henry, Hunter Madalinas, we know, talked about were the top three. Lewis Whittle, again, fantastic run for him to find himself in the fourth position. We saw him win the race in Daytona earlier this season. That was a phenomenal win to start out the year. He had a fantastic run here tonight to find himself in the fourth spot. Nathan Nixon, we saw get involved in probably the most spectacular wreck tonight. He finds himself in the fifth position after all is said and done. Steven Sims went from a bit of a slow start, found his way towards the front. Nicholson, probably the dominant driver of the night, slaps himself into the seventh spot after up and down by the end of that race. Jake Miller, pretty consistent around the top 10. He never really seemed to break through and find that top 5 or winning speed tonight, but he had a decent finish nonetheless after a big wreck late in the race. Nathan Jump, our pole sitter, is going to hold on to a top 10 finish. I'm sure he's at least satisfied that he was able to hold on to the top 10, but probably not as happy considering the pace he had tonight. Senzi's going to round out the top 10. And then going on to the rest of the order here, a bit of a surprise here with Matthew Rodriguez finding his way into the 11th position. Out of complete left field did he find his way up there. Big wrecks, big avoidance, and he slots himself into a good finishing position. Ashton Lawson, we saw at the front of the field late in the race, unfortunately got involved in a big wreck there late, and he's going to fall back to 12th after being the top 4 for the last 40 laps, it felt. Rod Fasno, we saw in a big wreck within those last 40 laps. He finds himself in a 13th. Barkuski, involved in quite a few wrecks tonight. He finds himself 14th. Elliot Henderson, 15th. Brett Kingcott, 16th. RJ Williams, 17th. All drivers that had decent runs tonight that just had problems late. Michael Barbagelata finds himself 18th. Matthew Durr, 19th. Anderson Bowen, 20th. And as we roll on to the back of this list here, it's all drivers that either had fantastic days that went horrendously wrong, or drivers that just never could find the pace tonight. Barbagelata, Kyle Hall, Nick Martin, Eric Kemp, James Shiflett, Josh Call, Alston Moore, McClellan, and McEachern, Niswong are all drivers that either had pace or just had problems tonight that round out the top 30. And as we go on to the last page of the list, this is full of some very unfortunate stories here at the end of the night. With 31st, Gavin Fitzgerald, we saw big damage early. Shane Terrian just didn't seem to have the pace tonight. Hunter Brittle, we saw the most spectacular wreck I've seen in quite a while happen to that race truck. Probably not spectacular in his eyes. Matt Daniels, we saw in a big wreck early, and Matt McDermott also in a big wreck to open out the night. And ladies and gentlemen, after we've gone through our race order here, it looks like we're finally going to be able to go over and talk to our race winner tonight. It's been a long one tonight, so we're going to keep it nice and tidy for you all. We're going to go straight to victory lane as we drag him into the booth. Christopher Heller, victor for tonight. We're talking about it here in the booth, but it feels like you almost stole one here with that strategy. How did you do it tonight?
Well, I got to thank all the yellow flags, I guess.
Yeah, after the one yellow that came out during green flag pit cycle, and you were one of the drivers that just pit, and you just found yourself back on the lead lap, so luckily you didn't have to take a wave around. What was the thought process behind staying out and keeping the track position, knowing that there was a good chance if this went green, you weren't going to make it to fuel on the end?
Well, I mean, I knew I was close. I was about 10 laps short before all those yellows. I knew I needed about 2 or 3 yellows to be able to make it, and we got that after that second yellow, I was pretty much committed. at that point. I was just gonna ride it out and hopefully try to position was gonna be king, but we just kept getting yellow after yellow after yellow, and I ended up having like 15 laps in the bank at the end of the race from all the yellow flags. So I could have easily won another 15 laps of green flag racing there.
Yeah, and I'm also curious about it as well because I knew that the fuel numbers were big tonight when you had stayed out, that it was going to be a mammoth effort had it gone green. How much fuel were you guys able to save under caution with this high speed, very large facility?
You could probably save about probably about 2 to 3 laps under yellow easily if you were shutting the car off and coasting most of the time. It felt like there was like one extra yellow flag lap for every caution than we normally have. So that's what made it a little bit easier to save gas, I guess. And I mean, it ended up working out for me because I knew right away, like our whole team was like, these yellow flags seem really long, so if we could stretch it, we were gonna do it.
And just one more question before we get your thanks and for sponsors and all. The big storyline, the last 25 to 30 laps for the victory tonight was your restart collaboration with Zachary Henry. I mean, what was the communication going like in the 2511 channel that you guys were almost each restart able to negotiate it to clear the field by that much?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna necessarily give up our secrets, but we definitely collabed a little bit, and he was on it. I mean, it was all on him. I just gave him information on right around where I was gonna go, and he was able to nail it each and every time for the most part, except for the one where he fell back to third. But but I think Barb had a pretty solid restart on that one. So sometimes you have bad restarts, sometimes you have good ones, and then I tried playing the dirty air to help Zach out when Barb wrecked. I didn't want to wreck Barb at all. I was just trying to give him dirty air to help my teammate out. And he just got a little squirrely off the corner, and I guess he busted his butt there. But you never want to see a guy wreck. I was just trying to help out my teammate, like I said, and try to put Barb in a little bit of a precarious spot. But I mean, it ended up helping my teammate, but not in the way that I wanted it to happen there. And then we just kept getting yellows, and I felt like at that point with all the heat cycles, I felt like my tires were pretty well even with Zach's, and having clean air will definitely help tire wear, considering I was in dirty air literally the entire race. And I was still managing my tires pretty well, I thought.
All right, well, congratulations on the victory tonight. Before we let you go, this is your prime time to thank any sponsors, friends, and family for the victory tonight. So I would like to ask who those people are tonight, because you came out with the strategy and came out with the victory.
Yeah, I want to thank the whole 2511 team with Nathan Nicholson basically dominating in this race, but fell behind in strategy. Zach Henry for managing to get back up to the pack there on the same strategy Nicholson was on. Brandon, even though he wasn't able to practice a whole lot this week, we were able to get him up to speed pretty quickly because we figured out all the tricks and secrets to this racetrack, and we basically gave him all the information he needed to go out there and have a strong run for most of the race. And obviously you guys for putting on the broadcast, and I guess everyone else watching the broadcast.
All right, well, congratulations, Christopher Heller, on the victory tonight. It was a strong one, and it was a very assured one there at the last 40 laps. So once again, congratulations, and thank you for coming in.
Yep, thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, apologies that we're not going to be talking to nearly as many drivers here tonight. The race did run a very, very long time. We don't want to keep this going for any longer than it needs to, absolutely necessary. But Jeff, hey, that was quite the race tonight. We had some long green flag runs. We had cautions really mix the strategy up and bring out some crazy things going on, and a streak of cautions at the end that pretty much threw tire saving completely out the window.
Yeah, what was setting up to be kind of a phenomenal strategy following that caution during green flag pit stops turned into one of the more absurd endings to a race that we've seen in a while. I think we totaled 7 cautions in the last hour of that race. Never really got more than a lap and a half of green flag racing in. But sometimes that happens. That can happen on this sim, and that has happened previously in the Great Lakes Truck Series. I did a little bit of digging just out of curiosity, and this will end up being the longest Great Lakes Truck Series race by time that they've had in 6 seasons. So I guess there's something to, I don't know if be proud of is the right word, but there's something to take note of. And some guys, namely a driver like Christopher Heller, I mean, they won the lottery tonight. He won a race that he probably wasn't going to win if this doesn't happen. So there are winners and there are losers, and a lot of these drivers are probably going to be having conversations behind the scenes about what happened, why it went wrong, and hopefully we'll do what we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. But overall, pretty good night for the Great Lakes Truck Series, Alex.
Yeah, pretty solid night indeed. Great victory there for 2511 and Christopher Heller. And we're going to be looking to see who else can break through and get the victories here this season. Looks to be very dominated by that 2511 crew, with Lewis Woodall being the one outlier so far this season. But as we head into Charlotte Motor Speedway next week, it's going to be a big race for a lot of those mile-and-a-half fans to really break through and get themselves into the championship fight. Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, as we close out tonight, thank you for watching the Great Lakes Truck Series here at Twin Ring Motegi. I'm Alex Golinix, and alongside me was Jeff Johnson in the booth. Thank you for coming in, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.